with me because there's so many unanswered questions.
They say they're out of leads after spending more than a month looking for this missing high school student.
I definitely was hoping she was still alive and still out there and we could go save her.
For those most affected by a homicide.
I remember hearing my mom's cries in the background, and I couldn't sleep because not knowing what happened to Susana was killing me.
The first 48 is just the beginning.
I have not seen any sharp force injuries to the bones.
There was no obvious cause of death.
That's a huge deficit to have in a homicide investigation. Without that, it makes it tough.
This is the story of the fight for justice.
There just wasn't any evidence to show that he caused her death.
In the weeks, months, and years.
We are anxious because of the bomb that the defense attorney dropped. We are all anticipating what is he going to say.
After.
Gwinnett County 911.
I need to make a report. My sister's been missing since yesterday.
What's your sister's name?
Susana Morales.
I'll have an officer out to meet with you and your mom.
Okay, thank you so much.
Buenos días.
Mi hija ayer a las 6 de la tarde se fue de su amiga según y su teléfono está apagado. Sabemos que llegó a la casa de la amiga supuestamente, pero ellos dicen que se fue a las 9 de la casa de ella.
I felt a little overwhelmed because we're all wondering, did she get kidnapped? I'm just like, what could have happened?
Su location marcó que la última vez fue a las 10:30.
She was like 360 with her friend, and it pinged her last location. So her friends went to go look at that last location, but didn't find anything.
¿Ella ha hecho esto antes?
Nunca ha dejado contestar y me dice que nunca...
¿Qué tenía puesto cuando se fue?
Eso se miraba ayer. Sí, la mejor ropa que tengo.
My mom, she felt it in her heart that something was wrong.
Ahí le encargo mucho, por favor.
Okay.
Gracias.
I was hoping that maybe she did run away and they would find her.
For several weeks, Gwinnett County's Special Victims Unit attempts to retrace Susana's steps, interview her friends, and respond to alleged sightings of her, only to come up empty.
They say they're out of leads after spending more than a month looking for this missing high school student.
This flyer is all across Norcross and Gwinnett County.
I felt like I couldn't stay still. I had to do something. If I would even sit down for a second, I would feel guilt. I had to make sure everybody knew her face to remind people that we're still looking for her.
After months without any leads on Susana's whereabouts.
SVU's been working a missing juvenile case for going actually 6 months today. I was super drawn to this case, and I would always follow up and ask them what progress had been made. I kind of inserted myself into the case. I definitely was hoping she was still alive and we could go save her.
16-year-old Susana Morales lives in Norcross, Georgia, with her mother and 2 sisters. A junior at Meadow Creek High School and a member of the cheerleading team, Susana dreams of becoming a professional singer.
July 26th, Susana was contacted by her mother and instructed to come home. She lived walking distance. Susana then begins traveling down Singleton Road, and she's captured on this camera. Her friend was tracking her through Life 360. Then out of nowhere, she starts going the opposite direction and at a speed of 40 miles per hour, indicating she was in a vehicle. They drove for about 5 minutes, and then there was an alert sent to the friend's phone. It then sent off a crash alert, but there's no reports of a car accident there. So to me, that says her phone was tossed out of the vehicle. That's the only thing that made sense. And then the phone remained in that area until it died the following day. After reviewing all the Life 360 alerts, I definitely knew in the back of my mind that there was going to be some kind of foul play.
2 weeks later.
911, what's the location of the emergency?
I was just out walking through the woods off the side of 316.
A call comes in from a remote area 25 miles from where Susanna was last seen.
I found a human skeleton. It's pretty old, very weathered.
All right, we're going to have an officer head out that way.
That way, a little walk.
Show us.
The troll secures the scene and calls for homicide.
Look at there. There's another figure.
While Carter works an unrelated case, detectives join County Medical Examiner Dr. Carol Terry.
It was dark, so it's harder to see what's not there. And the bones were somewhat scattered.
We've retrieved a significant portion of the skeleton. The skull's complete. There's no clothing, there's no wallet, there's no, possessions, no effects.
I have not seen any sharp force injuries to the bones.
Right now, we don't have a cause of death.
I know this is likely going to be a challenging case because the soft tissue is gone, and you may need the soft tissue to establish what the cause of death is.
Looking at it, the growth plates is not fused.
My assistant who's there is texting our forensic anthropology expert pictures of the remains.
She said tibia younger, 17, 18-ish.
She said, this looks like a young Hispanic female. Do you have any missing Hispanic females?
All of us in homicide immediately thought of Susanna.
They were sending pictures of what they had out there, which included her hair, which was the same color as Susanna's hair. My heart dropped at that point.
Dr. Terry found in the ground some of the teeth that had fallen out post-mortem.
If I can get the dental chart on this person, it should be an easy identification to make.
Because we got fillings in tooth number 14. That's pretty distinctive.
I was hoping that it wasn't Susanna. You see all these other cases where people are found alive. So there was still hope that she was out there.
While the team waits for the dental remains to be identified.
We're looking for bones the size of thumbnail.
We needed to do a line and grid search of that area for any clothing, identification, anything that could tell us who the remains belonged to. It was a very serious mood because I think we all kind of had a feeling who the remains might end up being.
Hey, y'all hold up.
The pre-recruit kind of raised his hand and said, hey, I think you need to come look at this.
Our recruit found a gun.
Never in my wildest dreams would I thought we'd have found a gun laying in the woods, and I couldn't believe it.
Probably 30 yards past where the skeletal remains were found. It's definitely suspicious.
You want to run that really quick?
We had the serial number ran over the air through our dispatch.
We're returning to 99.
It means it's stolen.
The day after Susanna went missing, the gun was reported stolen from the same apartment complex where she was last seen.
The likelihood of that being a coincidence just wasn't possible.
As the search wraps up,
Saw the vehicle driveway.
Yeah.
Carter arrives after getting an update about the gun.
I got super excited because now I'm like, okay, we're getting somewhere.
That's where the gun was actually found, is where that dead ends.
I want to talk to the guy who reported it missing.
The owner of that firearm was priority number one, to talk to them and see how their gun ended up in the woods out there.
Back at headquarters,
Miles Bryant, the guy who reported his gun stolen the day after Susanna went missing. He reported from his courtesy officer job at Westgate Village.
Miles Bryant lives at the same complex where Susanna visited friends the night she went missing. He also works security there.
Oh my gosh. Cop. This is crazy. At that moment, I thought, it's not something you run into every day. like getting crazy.
Where is he an officer?
Doraville.
The gun owner, 22-year-old Miles Bryant, works for the Doraville Police Department, 20 miles southwest of Gwinnett. He has served in the Army for 4 years.
No criminal history, which I figured, but he's definitely a suspect in some odd behaviors. Miles had a documented history where he was listed in multiple reports of him allegedly breaking into girls' homes, allegedly stalking another female. The neighbor then showed her video of a man with his face covered in a hoodie grab doorknob, twist it, and push the door, then leave. She believes the person was Miles Bryant.
This incident was investigated 4 months after Susanna went missing, but charges were never filed.
This guy right here is tingling a lot. He's sticking out.
My gut feeling, Miles was the guy that we needed to start focusing on. I've learned that 9 times out of 10, my intuition and my gut feeling are correct, but just your gut feeling isn't enough to arrest anybody.
The next thing we needed to do was getting his phone records, which were going to help us identify where he was at the time Susanna went missing.
The next day,
We obtained dental records for Susanna that were then provided to the medical examiner, and she confirmed that the remains were Susanna.
Cause of death is going to be ruled undetermined because of the state of decomposition and lack of evidence.
There was no obvious cause of death, which was kind of frustrating.
That's a huge deficit to have in a homicide investigation. Without that, it's hard to reach the threshold of those murder warrants.
Carter turns her focus to Susanna's family.
Break the horrible news.
Yo conocí a la detective Carter cuando llevó la noticia a la casa. Ellos pudieron explicar y que pudo haber sido estrangulada. Es algo que me atormento, el sufrimiento de ella en esas horas, en esos minutos, ¿me entiende? Porque hicieron tanta maldad a mi niña que no hacía mal a nadie.
I remember hearing my mom's cries in the background, and I couldn't sleep because of the not knowing what happened to her was killing me.
While waiting on Miles Bryant's phone records,
I looked on my floorboard and the my Glock 19 holster is on the floorboard.
Fortunately, we were able to find the body camera from when Miles reported his gun as stolen.
I don't really care about, the detective stuff like that. I just want to get on UCIC at least some perp, get caught on the side of the road with it, So I got you.
It was definitely odd because he mentioned not needing detectives to investigate. No cop is going to be okay with their gun missing unless you didn't want the police to go look for it.
Definitely raised a lot of red flags that he was trying to hide something.
Two days later,
We just got phone records back on our suspect. He is in the wood line at 1 a.m. Miles' cell phone records put him in the wooded area where Susanna was located. I have chills right now.
From where Miles lived, it's probably a 30 to 45-minute drive, so it definitely was suspicious that he was out there a few hours after she went missing.
I definitely started feeling a lot more urgency because he's in a position that he could put more people in harm's way. There's no question. We need to move on him. We need to talk to him.
Three days later,
I don't want to go reaching the front door. We need to go up and knock. So if we go in there with flashbangs and guns and everything else, he ain't gonna say.
There were many discussions on how to approach Miles.
We kind of wanted to play it like, oh, cool, like, we just need your help. You're one of us.
He says no and tries to shut the door. Are we stopping him?
I think at that point, we have to tell him we would have a search warrant.
And you're detained.
the team heads out to Miles's apartment.
Me and Garrick just went and sat in the complex.
Target's walking towards the F-150.
until he walked outside, and then we approached him on foot.
Hey man, what's up? You doing all right?
Here, we're trying to look for anybody helping us out with that missing girl.
Oh. You got some time to come up to our headquarters and just talk about, you know, what you see on a daily basis? Yeah, does it be today? Yeah. We got no leads, man. We're just trying to document everything. That's all we are. Get up front seat, all right, ma'am?
There was a lot riding on this interview. At that point in time, we didn't know if he took Susanna, how she died, why all this happened. We didn't know anything.
If you need anything, just knock. Thanks.
Since we didn't have a cause of death for her, and there wasn't enough evidence for probable cause at that time. If he did do it, then I wanted him to confess. So I charged him with the murder.
Any questions?
¿Qué día fue?
Su día de cumpleaños.
Día de las mamás. Este es mi cumpleaños. Ella ahí está feliz con sus flores. Mira, siempre con su sonrisa hermosa. Todos los videos, todas las fotos de Susana, usted la va a ver con una gran sonrisa.
Susana era tan creativa. Susana se hacía letras basadas en sus emociones. I would love hearing her sing. She was learning the piano, the guitar. So I just love watching her do that. Pasión por la música pensó como de muy pequeña. Pero Susana para mí fue como una hija. Yo sé que usted es su madre. Y ella fue mi hermana.
Yo sé que, pero tú la cuidaste desde cuando estaba pequeña, porque yo solo estoy trabajando.
Y fue muy apegada a mí en el sentido de que yo la tomé como que mi responsabilidad como mamá. Y para mí fue muy duro. Y yo agradezco a Dios por haber experimentado los momentos tan bellos con Susana.
More than 6 months after Susanna went missing.
Hey!
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm Detective Carter. I'm lead on this. This was the first time I ever interrogated a police officer about a potential murder. So my goal was definitely to build rapport with him and make him comfortable.
We were trying to keep him calm, not to tip him off that we're looking at him for this missing person and murder.
So I've been getting a lot of for this case, so I gotta start working a little bit more. How long have you been with Doraville?
About 2 years.
Hell yeah.
I think I'll come to Gwinnett, though.
You should, because we need people. I didn't know if the strategy was gonna work with him, because he's also trained in interview techniques and strategies. So you said that you possibly went out like patrolling that night. Do you remember anything? Anything that stands out to you?
Not really. That time, no. That was a while ago, man.
So I know that your gun was stolen. Do you know if it was located or anything yet?
No, I haven't heard anything.
At that point, we wanted to start laying the trap for Miles.
So I started giving him little bits and pieces of information that I knew. So we did find your gun, actually, yes. You watched the news, you know we found Susanna. But there was actually a gun found out there too.
For real?
Yeah, and it's the same serial number. I wanted to get his reaction to see what he would say. He was like, oh, that's crazy, but it didn't seem like a genuine shock. Do you know where she was found?
316 somewhere.
Do you ever go in the woods and stuff out there?
In the woods now.
I need you to think really hard though with me. Think of anybody that was out there that night, because I know you were out there patrolling that night.
Me and my girlfriend actually arguing that night.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I just was driving around.
What were y'all arguing about?
Miles says his girlfriend confronted him about cheating on her.
I went toward, God, this sounds bad. It sounds terrible.
Probably went up Lawrenceville area.
Lawrenceville's pretty big, so I'm not sure what you're talking about.
It is over about 316.
I mean, you're saying that's bad. You mean the area where...
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. My gun was found in that area, you know. Technically was in that area, stuff like that, you know.
I don't think you have anything to hide. I mean, you're a police officer.
I know disrespect. I'm really getting, you know, I say perk vibes. It's feel like suspect vibes right now. You know?
Why?
The way y'all talking.
We're just talking. I think he felt like he was still kind of in control at that point, but I think he also knew that he was in trouble. So I did get your phone records. So I know you were already up there.
I don't know what you're thinking, but no.
We know you were there, but we need to figure out why and what happened.
I'm being 100% I literally never seen her.
Your phone is right there where your gun was dropped.
Carter kind of flipped the script and put the pressure on him. I think Miles felt powerless in that moment.
I was on 316, but in the woods, no. I would not do that. That's, whoa, I'm nervous right now.
You've been nervous the whole time.
Take a minute, take a breath. You gotta stop.
Y'all put me as a suspect in this.
It's a question about if you are a cold-blooded killer or if you made a mistake.
I would not do that and say, well, maybe I messed up. No, none of that. I'm not involved.
All right, well, we do have to get your phones, okay? All right, just hang out.
It's definitely frustrating. We were hitting dead ends. If he's not going to change his stance, we needed to take a break and regroup.
He's not gonna come off of it. You wanna try? Maybe it's because I'm a female. Given his history, I didn't think he really respected women. So I made the decision to switch places with Sergeant Poppy to hopefully see if Miles would respond to him more.
So we read body language, right? Big time. And the stuff you're giving us is just not telling us that you're not guilty.
I did not do that.
Most people who say that do not say it laughing.
Me and Sergeant Poppy went back in and kind of just hit Miles a little more aggressively.
Why was your gun being stolen, like, of so little importance to you?
I have a lot of guns.
So
I went to report it.
You told the officer, you don't even have to investigate this.
Because if
we investigate it, we're gonna find it, and it's gonna be near a dead body that you killed.
No. I feel like you reported it stolen.
Because you're trying to set up an alibi for your gun.
No, it's not why. I'm trying to change as a suspect.
Miles was either gonna break and confess, or he was gonna shut down and say he's done talking.
Hoping you were going to be a man and own up to whatever you did. You don't represent this badge at all.
You'll be charged.
Since Miles didn't confess to anything during his interview, we weren't able to charge him with the murder.
But we knew he made a false report for his gun being stolen, and we knew that he was out there at the time that she was likely dropped there. So we charged him with concealing a death and false report of a crime.
The decision was made to charge him with these crimes to get him off the streets because he's clearly a danger.
I definitely was nervous and anxious because if we don't find the evidence that we needed to charge him with the murder, he could potentially walk.
While Miles awaits a potential bond hearing to be released from jail.
Holy, look how many steps he's taken in these 10-minute periods.
What is that you're looking at?
His activity sensors.
Carter makes a discovery in the data downloaded from Miles's phone.
It showed that he had taken a huge amount of steps within such a short period of time. At 1:20 a.m., he traveled 381 meters, 1:31, 140 meters, 1:41, 373 meters.
The activity was recorded when Miles's phone was in the woods where Susanna's remains were found.
Miles's activity was a game changer because the amount of steps he was taking indicated somebody searching for something. I think he was trying to find his gun.
Then,
Here we go. We were able to get search history where we saw he was Googling things like, how long does it take a body to decompose?
The internet search was made after Susanna disappeared.
Bam, mic drop.
Can I get my warrant now, please?
After all the cell phone evidence, Carter was able to charge Miles with the murder of Susanna Morales.
My initial impressions of Miles' case, I thought it was a strong case. There was no motive. There was no cause of death. So we don't know how she died. There was zero evidence to go towards the murder case, in my opinion.
That was going to be one of the largest defenses that we are going to have to overcome. Because we had no cause of death, how can you prove this was a murder?
Could she have been stabbed? Sure. Could she have been shot and it didn't hit the bone? Sure. But I can't say absolutely, just by looking at these bones here, that this establishes a definitive cause of death, because it doesn't.
Because we couldn't prove how this happened, we had to prove, why would he do this? In researching and investigating Miles Bryant, he had a history of allegedly stalking women. So we charged him with malice murder, kidnapping, and criminal attempt to commit rape, that he intended to rape her.
During their research, prosecutors discover evidence of alleged stalking or other suspicious behavior by Bryant towards multiple women. They submit the evidence to the judge, even though none of the cases led to charges.
This case was based on circumstantial evidence. So we needed to present these alleged acts to the jury to show his motive and intent.
Nearly 2 years after Susanna's death, the trial of Miles Bryant begins.
State ready?
We're ready, Your Honor.
Defense ready?
Yes, Lord.
La primera vez que lo vi, me sentí como que se calentó mi sangre. I couldn't even look at him. I didn't even want to see his face.
I attended every day of the trial instead of just coming to testify. It was really, really important case to me. So wanted to make sure everything went right.
Then,
Ms. Drake, you said there was something to take up?
Yes, Your Honor.
right before opening statements,
This Life 360 that the court has heard a lot about, I think it is error to bring that in, and I would ask that it be kept out at this time.
This, to us, came out of nowhere. We had already had days of pretrial motions, and the defense attorney starts to try and keep out something that was essential to our case. These are screenshots of the Life 360 app that show Susanna's movements from that evening. This shows to us that Susanna was taken against her will and in a completely different direction from her home.
The Life 360 is a form of hearsay through the photograph. The state was unable to produce business records from Life 360. Those have to be requested within 6 months. So the only way that they could get in anything would be through these individual photographs.
Without that Life 360 evidence, our case would have been much harder to prove to a jury.
That was the crux of the whole state's case.
If we didn't have that evidence, we have no direction to go in.
At this point, that is hearsay because it's not a business record exception.
The defense was arguing that because these screenshots from her friends' phones didn't come from the Life 360 corporate headquarters, that they were not official. We relied on case law that shows that people who receive the messages are able to testify to it.
the judge makes her ruling.
I am denying Mr. Bryant's motion.
That moment was important to us because that Life 360 evidence was essential.
Does the state wish to make an opening statement?
He was supposed to serve and protect. Instead, he abused. He is a cop who turned into a killer.
You don't have to lie to my client. And in fact, at the conclusion of this trial, you're going to think that he is the most callous, uncaring coward that you have ever seen. But you're going to hear from Miles Bryant. He's going to explain to you exactly what happened.
We are shocked. None of us expected that Miles Bryant is going to testify.
That had always been our strategy. I felt that in order for any shot at an acquittal, he needed to testify.
We are anxious because of the bomb that Tracy Drake dropped. We are all anticipating what is he going to say.
State ready to proceed with first witness? Okay.
Prosecutors call Susanna's mother, Maria, to the stand.
How long was it from when Susanna disappeared to when the police found her?
Casi 7 meses.
Almost 7 months.
What went through your mind at that moment when you heard?
Yo la esperaba.
I was waiting for her.
Y la sigo esperando.
And I'm still waiting for her.
My heart really broke for her. You could feel her pain. I cannot fathom what she went through all those months.
Did you ever know that she would smoke marijuana?
Sí.
Yes.
And did you ever hear Susanna tell you that she did anything else other than marijuana?
No.
We had to get that information out there because we figured the defense attorney would try to smear Susanna's character.
You mentioned you thought that she had tried a drug, something crystal. Would that be crystal meth?
Can't say for sure.
You also remember telling Detective Carter that it was something meth.
Possibly, yes. I can't say for sure.
The fact that there had been some drug use by the victim was very important to our case. The idea that perhaps she had overdosed was a very big defense and a very real possibility.
The state summons the first of multiple women who alleged suspicious behavior by Bryant, Susanna's high school friend who was with her the night she went missing. The friend lived in the same apartment complex as Miles.
Had you ever had any personal interactions with the defendant before Susanna disappeared?
Yes.
And can you tell us what those are?
We were there at the pool and he came with his backpack and he had a drink with him and he had little shot cups and he had edibles and stuff. And he asked how old I was, and then when I told him my age, he still wanted to talk to me but didn't talk to me because of my age, but he still offered the edibles.
And Susanna was with you?
Yes.
During those?
Yes.
We thought it was important for jurors to see why would he target Susanna? Why would he pick her up? Well, he had done these type of things before.
Yes, it looks horrible that he's approaching minors and offering them drugs. However, it does establish that Susanna knew who he was, and it does emphasize that possibly she had a bad reaction to a drug or overdosed.
Day 3 of the trial. Prosecutors call a former classmate of Miles to the stand.
What do you have Mr. Bryant saved in as your phone?
Miles the stalker with an axe and a hole.
Did you put that in there?
I sure did.
Ring doorbell cameras from her neighbors shows Miles Bryant trying to break into this young woman's apartment over and over again. What did you see when you looked through the peephole?
He started knocking on the door, and then as I backed away, he started kicking on it harder. I grabbed my gun and I peeked through the peephole. I cocked the gun back and he had his pointed at the door as well.
Did you end up speaking to law enforcement?
I don't think they sent a unit. They called my phone, but nobody ever came.
Her belief was that because he was a police officer, she was ignored.
I knew that the prior bad acts kind of puts a bad taste in the jurors' mouths, but that doesn't mean that they had proven kidnapping, rape, or murder.
Finally, the state calls their key witness, Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Carol Terry.
As Dr. Terry is coming into court, All of us were nervous about what were the jurors gonna think, because she's the one who ultimately says this is a murder. And we didn't have that.
All right, good afternoon, Dr. Terry, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Worst case scenario was that the defense grilled her as to why there's no cause of death, and the jury start believing some of those defense arguments, and we lose a murder charge.
Dr. Terry, were you able to make any conclusions in your report?
Yes, these circumstances are very suspicious for homicidal violence, but I can't prove it because of the condition of the remains.
We anticipated the most questions from the defense to Dr. Terry. How do we know what happened to Susanna? All of this is speculation. All of this is circumstantial evidence.
But then,
Dr. Terry, thank you so much, and Ms. Drake has some questions for you.
Actually, I'm leaving this to Mr. Dobbins.
Okay, Mr. Dobbins.
You did such a good job, I don't have any questions.
We didn't need to ask her any questions. Dr. Terry was unable to say, this is the manner in which she died. So there was really no evidence to disprove that it wasn't an overdose in this case.
the state calls their final witness.
Good morning, Detective Carter.
Good morning.
And submits their last piece of evidence against Miles.
Miles Bryant was dispatched to a residence regarding a missing juvenile. While on scene, the juvenile returns home.
Something was happening to you. We're doing a rape or a missing person, then we find your body out there in the woods. Then what?
In the video, he says these striking words, things that we don't expect police officers to say to kids.
People are my size, big, and just come snatch you up. You can scream, you can shout all you want. They're gonna throw you in the back of the van and go take you, and your parents never see you again.
This happens just months before Susanna is reporting missing. Miles Bryant is here snitching on himself, talking about all things that preview the awful, horrendous acts he committed on Susanna. It's frightening.
It was a blow to the case, and that's why he needed to testify.
Swear you in? Do you swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I did fear that he would come as a juror, that he had nothing to do with it. But more than anything, we wanted to know the truth about what happened.
Do you understand that no one can make or compel you to testify?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you have the right to not testify if you do not want to?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you personally, Miles Bryant, want to testify or not?
No, ma'am.
I felt it was necessary, but obviously it's his right to not testify.
All right, y'all may be seated.
I believe he just got a little bit worried that he would say the wrong thing trying to explain himself.
That was a huge letdown for the family because those answers, they'll never get.
The jury begins deliberations.
Waiting on a verdict is awful. You rehash in your mind the whole trial.
I was nervous, and I was wondering why it was taking them so long to decide.
I did not think that they proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he himself caused her death. Perhaps she had overdosed, and Mr. Bryant simply freaked out and made a very bad decision to dispose of her body.
Has the jury reached a verdict? Okay, if you'll hand it to my bailiff.
It was the longest 3 minutes of my life. Tell us, just say it.
State of Georgia versus Miles Bryant. Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, found the defendant guilty.
I lost it. The attorneys, they were like, calm down. But I was just so excited because I knew all of the work paid off.
I remember tears coming to my eyes, and I looked back at Susanna's mom because that's what we were here for.
¿Se sintió que se hizo justicia?
Miles Bryant es un monstruo y está donde debe estar para que no siga haciendo mal a las jovencitas.
This case is always gonna stick with me because there's so many unanswered questions. He should have been stopped a long time ago, and he should have never had the ability to do this to her.
Miles Bryant abused the badge. In this awful, awful case, it was so important that there were so many strong women that put a stop to that.
More than 3 years after she was killed, Susanna's family visits her memorial.
I will forever miss Susanna. Sometimes I forget that she's not even here, and then I remember. It's really hard. Thank you for coming.
Of course, I wanted to see you. Seeing the memorial, it just reminds me of why I do what I do. It makes me really sad still.
She wants to know if we can go all the way in there. En mi corazón hay dolor. Trato de seguir al día, pero morí ese día que ella se fue.
I'm sorry, guys.
There's a phrase in Spanish, paz que pasa todo entendimiento. Although it hurts so bad sometimes that I can't breathe, that she's not with me, the only thing that gives me peace is God.
Some crimes vanish from newspaper headlines. Others disappear into forgotten filing cabinets, buried beneath layers of dust and bureaucracy, until even the detectives who once chased them retire with more questions than answers. But every so often, one case refuses to die. It lingers in whispered conversations, in fading photographs taped inside family albums, in empty chairs at holiday dinners, and in the uneasy silence that settles over a town every time someone mentions a familiar name. In the fall of 1981, the small farming community of Ash Creek, Missouri, became home to one of those stories. People still remember the weather. Cold enough for jackets before sunset. Dry wind carrying fallen leaves across Main Street. Cornfields already stripped bare after harvest, leaving endless rows of dark earth stretching toward the horizon. It looked like any ordinary October evening. Stores closed on time. Porch lights flickered on one by one. Pickup trucks rolled slowly down quiet roads. Nothing suggested that before sunrise, an entire community would begin asking the same question. Where did Emily Carter go? Emily was 26 years old, a freelance photographer, quiet, observant, endlessly curious. She had a habit of carrying 2 cameras everywhere, one loaded with black and white film, the other with color. Friends joked she never truly looked at people. She studied them. She noticed details nobody else saw. Mud on boots, fresh scratches on truck doors, wedding rings suddenly missing from familiar hands. She believed every photograph told 2 stories, the one people wanted others to see, and the one hiding just outside the frame. On Friday afternoon, October 16th, she left a local newspaper office carrying a canvas camera bag and a small leather notebook. She told her editor she was driving west to photograph abandoned railroad bridges before developers demolished them. It sounded believable. Emily often chased forgotten places, empty churches, closed factories, decaying barns. She loved documenting history before it disappeared forever. Nobody questioned her. At exactly 4:18 p.m., she stopped at Miller's Grocery on Highway 12. Security cameras were rare in small-town Missouri in 1981, but the owner later remembered selling her a bottle of water, 2 rolls of Kodak film, and a pack of peppermint gum. She seemed distracted, he told deputies, like she was thinking about something. He asked if she wanted her usual coffee. She smiled. Not today. Those were the last confirmed words anyone heard from Emily Carter. Her blue Chevrolet pickup was spotted leaving town 20 minutes later. Then, nothing. When Emily failed to return home that night, her younger brother Daniel assumed she had driven to Kansas City for another photography assignment. It wasn't unusual. She often worked unpredictable hours. But by Saturday afternoon, concern replaced patience. Her apartment remained untouched. The curtains were still open. Her cat had no food. The answer machine blinked with 3 unheard messages. By sunset, Daniel walked into the Ash Creek Sheriff's Office and reported his sister missing. Deputies launched what they believed would be a routine search. A woman disappears. Vehicle breakdown. Flat tire. Maybe she spent the night with friends. Cases like this usually resolve within 24 hours. This one never did. Search teams combed gravel roads. Volunteer firefighters searched creeks. Neighbors rode horseback through miles of farmland. Helicopters circled patches of forest. Nothing. No truck. No camera. No clothing. No footprints. No sign that Emily Carter had existed beyond Friday afternoon. The only clue arrived 48 hours later. A state highway worker noticed tire tracks leading toward an abandoned railway service road 5 miles outside town. Hidden beneath overgrown brush sat Emily's blue pickup. The truck was locked. The keys were gone. Her purse remained on the passenger seat. Inside were $37 in cash. Her driver's license. A folded road map. Nothing appeared stolen. Nothing looked disturbed. Detectives searched every inch of the vehicle. No blood. No signs of violence. No broken glass. No fingerprints except Emily's and several partial prints too smudged for identification. The cameras were missing. So was a leather notebook. Those 2 missing items immediately caught investigators' attention. If Emily simply walked away, why take only the cameras? If someone abducted her, why leave everything else? The questions multiplied faster than the answers. Reporters arrived by Monday morning. Television crews parked outside the sheriff's office. Newspapers across Missouri printed nearly identical headlines. Local photographer vanishes without a trace. Residents locked doors they had never bothered locking before. Parents stopped children from riding bicycles after dark. Rumors spread faster than facts. Some believed Emily discovered illegal drug activity near the abandoned railway. Others whispered about escaped prisoners. Truck drivers passing through town claimed to have seen strange lights near the old rail bridge. None of it could be proven. Detective Harold Mason was assigned as lead investigator. 48 years old, 12 years with the sheriff's department, known for patience more than brilliance. He interviewed everyone: family, friends, co-workers, former classmates, even people who barely knew Emily. One interview stood out immediately. Her editor admitted Emily had recently become obsessed with an old local story. Not a murder, not a disappearance. A train derailment from 1964. Official records described it as an accident involving hazardous cargo. 3 railroad workers died. The case closed within weeks. Emily believed the official version made no sense. She had spent months requesting archive documents, photographing forgotten rail lines, interviewing retired railroad employees. She repeatedly told co-workers the story was bigger than anyone realized. Someone lied. She had said, "I just don't know who." Detective Mason searched Emily's apartment. Stacks of books covered the dining table. Boxes filled with newspaper clippings. County maps marked with red circles. Dozens of photographs from abandoned rail stations. Most looked ordinary. Broken windows. Rusted tracks. Collapsed buildings. Until investigators noticed something strange. Nearly every photograph contained the same man, always in the background, standing far away, watching, sometimes beside a truck, sometimes near railroad equipment, sometimes partially hidden behind trees, never looking directly into the camera. At first, detectives assumed coincidence. Then they counted 17 separate photographs, 17 different locations, the same unidentified man. Nobody recognized him. Not co-workers. Not neighbors. Not Emily's family. The figure became known inside the investigation as the Shadow Man. Artists created sketches. Newspapers published them. Tips flooded the sheriff's office. Every lead collapsed. Wrong identity. False sightings. Hoaxes. Months turned into years. Emily Carter remained missing. The shadow man remained nameless. By 1984, the investigation had consumed thousands of hours and hundreds of interviews. The sheriff's office officially classified Emily's disappearance as a probable homicide despite never finding a body. Evidence boxes filled an entire storage room. Cassette interviews, photographs, maps, handwritten notes. Every detective believed the answer was somewhere inside those files. Nobody could find it. Life moved on. Businesses changed owners. Children became adults. New sheriffs were elected. Detective Harold Mason retired, carrying Emily's case home in his thoughts every night. He once told his wife there were only 2 investigations that truly haunted him. One involved a child. The other involved a photographer who disappeared without leaving behind a single drop of blood. As the years passed, Ash Creek stopped talking openly about Emily Carter. Not because people forgot, because remembering hurt. Her parents died without answers. Daniel continued placing fresh flowers beneath her high school graduation photograph every October. The abandoned railway slowly disappeared beneath vines and weeds. Evidence gathered dust inside climate-controlled storage. Technology changed. Investigators changed. Generations changed. The case became another cold file. One more unsolved mystery. One more name printed on lists of Missouri's forgotten disappearances. Until 43 years later, an old cassette tape surfaced inside the attic of a house scheduled for demolition. A tape nobody knew existed. A tape carrying a voice investigators had spent decades trying to hear. And before the recording ended, a man quietly whispered 5 words that would reopen one of Missouri's oldest cold cases. I should have told them. The cassette looked ordinary. A 90-minute Maxwell recording tape. Clear plastic. Yellowed label. No date. No title. Only 2 faded initials written in blue ink. GR. The construction crew almost threw it away. It had fallen from a rotten cardboard box hidden beneath loose floorboards in the attic of an abandoned farmhouse outside Ash Creek. Most of the papers stored with it had already turned to dust. Old receipts, utility bills, hunting licenses. Nothing appeared valuable. Until one worker noticed the tape had been wrapped separately inside a plastic freezer bag. Someone had wanted it protected. The farmhouse had once belonged to Joseph Rollins, a retired railroad mechanic who died in 1998. Rollins had never been considered important to Emily Carter's disappearance. He had given one short witness statement in 1981. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious. He claimed he saw no one near the abandoned rail line that Friday evening. Investigators interviewed him for less than 20 minutes. His name disappeared into files. Now, nearly half a century later, his initials were sitting on a forgotten cassette. The tape reached the Ash Creek Sheriff's Office on a rainy Tuesday morning. Most deputies expected old family recordings, birthday parties, country music. Nothing connected to an investigation older than many of the officers themselves. Cold case detective Ryan Keller almost ignored it. 41 years old, former homicide investigator, known for reopening impossible cases. He had spent the last 3 years digitizing forgotten evidence stored in county archives. Emily Carter's disappearance had become his personal obsession. He often joked that the old evidence boxes knew more than anyone still alive. When the evidence technician placed the cassette on his desk, Keller stared at it for several seconds. Something felt wrong. People rarely protect meaningless recordings inside waterproof bags beneath floorboards. He requested immediate audio restoration. The tape had deteriorated. The first attempt produced nothing but static. Engineers cleaned it, repaired damaged magnetic sections, digitized every second. Finally, a voice emerged, an elderly man, breathing heavily, speaking slowly. There was no introduction, no explanation, only silence for nearly 30 seconds. Then, I don't know who's going to hear this. Another pause. I suppose it doesn't matter anymore. The investigators leaned closer to the speakers. It started with the photographs. Detective Keller froze. Nobody outside the original investigators knew photographs were missing from Emily Carter's truck. That information had never been released publicly. The old man's voice continued. She wasn't supposed to take pictures that day. Inside the room, nobody moved. Every detective understood immediately. Whoever recorded this tape knew details only someone connected to the case could know. The recording lasted almost 54 minutes. Most of it sounded like a man struggling against decades of guilt. Names surfaced. Places. Half-finished memories. Several times he began crying before continuing. He repeatedly apologized. Not to investigators. Not to Emily's family. To Emily herself. Then came the sentence that changed everything. I saw what happened. Silence filled the conference room. Every person listening instinctively looked at someone else, almost checking whether they had heard the words correctly. 43 years, thousands of interviews, hundreds of false leads, and suddenly, a forgotten witness. Joseph Rollins described leaving the old switching yard shortly after sunset on October 16, 1981. He had stayed late repairing equipment for a freight company. As he drove toward Highway 12, he noticed Emily's blue pickup parked beside the abandoned rail bridge. She was taking photographs. She wasn't alone. There were 3 men. 3. Not 1. Not 2. 3. Rollins admitted fear stopped him from getting closer. He recognized one of them immediately. Someone respected. Someone powerful. Someone nobody would believe was involved. But before he revealed the identity, the recording skipped. Damaged tape. 23 seconds lost forever. Engineers attempted digital recovery. Nothing. The confession resumed in the middle of another sentence. The arguing about the box. Detectives replayed the audio repeatedly. The box? What box? Emily's notebook? Camera equipment? Something recovered from the railroad? Nobody knew. Rollins described hearing shouting. Then one loud metallic sound. Not a gunshot. Not an explosion. Metal striking metal. After that, silence. He claimed Emily's voice disappeared. The 3 men loaded something into the back of a dark pickup truck. Rollins never saw a body. He admitted that clearly, but he watched the trucks leave in different directions. Then he made the decision that haunted him for the rest of his life. He drove home. He told no one. His explanation was painfully simple. I knew one of them. I was afraid. Detective Keller immediately ordered investigators to reopen every witness interview from 1981, every statement mentioning Joseph Rollins, every railroad employee, every truck owner, every person connected to abandoned rail property. Patterns emerged surprisingly fast. Rollins had worked alongside dozens of railroad maintenance workers during the 1960s and 1970s. One name appeared again and again. Frank Delaney, former rail supervisor, community leader, volunteer firefighter, respected businessman. Interviewed once in 1981. Never investigated further. Why? Keller searched the original interview transcript. Only 2 pages. Delaney claimed he was home watching baseball. No one verified his alibi. The detective who interviewed him scribbled one handwritten note across the bottom. Reliable witness. Nothing else. No follow-up. No background investigation. No timeline verification. It looked almost careless. Detective Keller frowned. Good detectives verify. They don't assume. Why had anyone checked? He continued reading. Another detail stood out. Delaney owned a dark green Ford pickup. Exactly the type of vehicle several anonymous callers mentioned during the first weeks of Emily's disappearance. Those tips had been dismissed because callers couldn't provide license plates. Only colors. Dark truck. Near railroad tracks. The information seemed too vague in 1981. Today, combined with Rollins' confession, it suddenly mattered. Investigators obtained search warrants for archived county records, insurance documents, vehicle registrations, property deeds. One discovery shocked everyone. Frank Delaney purchased the abandoned switching yard only 6 months after Emily disappeared. The sale price? $1. Official paperwork described the land as environmentally worthless. Yet Delaney fought aggressively to obtain it. Why buy abandoned railroad property nobody wanted? Unless something remained there. Ground-penetrating radar teams arrived 2 days later. The old switching yard looked forgotten. Trees pushed through cracked concrete. Rusted rails disappeared beneath decades of weeds. Nothing suggested history still slept beneath the soil. The radar operator completed the first scan, then stopped walking. He requested another pass. Same result. Not natural. 3 large underground anomalies. Rectangular. Roughly 6 feet long. Approximately 4 feet deep. Detective Keller stared silently at the monitor. Nobody spoke. No one wanted to be the first. Search warrants became excavation orders within hours. Television helicopters returned to Ash Creek for the first time in decades. Reporters lined country roads again. Residents watched from behind police tape. Older faces recognized the location immediately. Younger generations asked parents why everyone suddenly looked frightened. Because the past had returned, exactly where it had been left. The first excavation uncovered nothing but old railroad ties. The second revealed broken machinery buried during demolition. Hope faded quickly. Then the third trench reached nearly 5 feet below ground. One forensic archaeologist suddenly raised his hand. Everyone stopped digging. A weathered wooden crate emerged slowly from the earth. Its lid had collapsed long ago. Inside lay dozens of rusted metal containers, film canisters, hundreds of them, Kodak, Fujifilm, Agfa, some crushed, some intact. Detectives exchanged confused looks. Why bury photographs? Forensic technicians carefully collected every roll. Most had decomposed beyond recovery, but a handful appeared remarkably well preserved. Enough, perhaps, to develop if Emily Carter had taken photographs before she disappeared. The truth might still be hiding inside undeveloped film. 43 years underground, waiting for someone brave enough to look. The discovery of the buried film canister spread across Missouri before sunset. Every major television station interrupted regular programming. 1981 cold case reopened. Hidden evidence found after 43 years. Investigators believe lost photographs may solve disappearance. For the people of Ash Creek, it felt as if time had folded back on itself. The same reporters stood outside the courthouse. The same questions echoed through quiet neighborhoods. The same fear returned. Only now, many of the people who had been young adults in 1981 were grandparents, and some of them looked terrified. Detective Ryan Keller noticed it immediately. The older residents were not simply curious. They were nervous. Some refused interviews. Others suddenly remembered appointments and hurried away when cameras appeared. One elderly man closed the curtains of his home the moment a police cruiser stopped nearby. Another woman who had ignored investigators for decades called the sheriff's office before midnight. She refused to identify herself. Her voice shook. You dug in the wrong place. The dispatcher asked for her name. The line went dead. The call lasted only 22 seconds. But Keller replayed it repeatedly. Not because of what she said, because of what he heard behind her voice. A train horn. Long, deep, close. Ash Creek no longer had active rail service. Anyone living near an operating railroad had to be outside the county. The anonymous caller was somewhere else. Somewhere she believed she was still safe. The forensic laboratory worked around the clock. Developing film exposed to moisture for more than 4 decades was almost impossible. Most of the recovered rolls had fused together. Chemical damage had destroyed entire frames. Experts warned investigators not to expect miracles. Then the first image appeared. Blurry. Scratched. Barely recognizable. An abandoned rail crossing. Nothing unusual. The second photograph showed rusted equipment. The third, an empty gravel road. Disappointment spread through the room. Perhaps the buried film had nothing to do with Emily. Perhaps someone had simply hidden old railroad photographs underground. Then technicians opened another canister. Frame number 4 slowly emerged inside the developing solution. Everyone leaned closer. A pickup truck, dark green, parked beside the abandoned switching yard. The image was grainy, but the license plate remained partially visible. Detective Keller immediately requested digital enhancement. Minutes later, enough numbers became readable to search state registration records. The plate belonged to one vehicle, registered in October 1981. Owner, Frank Delaney. Nobody spoke. The room became silent, except for the humming of laboratory equipment. The truck matched Joseph Rollins' confession. It matched forgotten witness tips. And now, it appeared inside a photograph buried beneath the switching yard. But the next image changed everything. Emily had been standing farther away, using a telephoto lens. She captured 3 men unloading a large wooden crate from the back of Delaney's truck. One of them was unmistakable, Frank Delaney. The second remained partially hidden, only his profile visible. The third man was wearing a sheriff's department jacket. Detective Keller felt his stomach tighten. He enlarged the photograph. The face remained too damaged to identify, but the uniform patch was clear. Someone inside law enforcement had been at the switching yard the night Emily disappeared. Someone who had never admitted being there. Investigators rushed toward archive personnel files. In 1981, Ash Creek Sheriff's Office employed only 11 sworn deputies. 1 had died. 3 had retired. Several still lived nearby. Every surviving deputy received an unexpected visit before dawn. Most cooperated immediately. Some appeared genuinely shocked. One man, former Deputy Carl Henson, seemed different, 78 years old, living alone outside Jefferson County. When Keller placed a developed photograph on his kitchen table, Henson stared at it for nearly a minute, then quietly pushed it away. I told Harold not to bury this. Detective Keller looked up. What did you say? Henson sighed deeply. I wasn't talking about the crate. He closed his eyes. I meant the investigation. Those words hit harder than any confession, because they suggested something investigators had never imagined. The case had not simply gone cold. Someone had allowed it to. Henson admitted there had been disagreements inside the sheriff's office in 1981. Detective Harold Mason believed influential local businessmen were withholding information. The sheriff disagreed. Political pressure increased. County elections approached. Nobody wanted headlines accusing respected citizens of murder without undeniable proof. Evidence requests slowed. Search warrants disappeared. Witness interviews stopped. Eventually, the investigation quietly lost momentum, not because detectives stopped caring, because someone higher up decided it was time. Detective Keller listened without interrupting. Every answer produced 2 new questions. Then Henson mentioned something no report had ever recorded. There was another photographer. Another photographer? Emily had gone alone. Every witness confirmed it. Henson shook his head. That's what everyone believed. He walked slowly toward an old filing cabinet. After several minutes of searching, he removed a faded envelope. Inside rested a single Polaroid photograph, taken sometime during autumn. Emily Carter stood beside another woman, both carrying cameras, both smiling. Written across the bottom in black marker, Emily and Rachel last assignment together. Detective Keller had never seen Rachel before. Neither had anyone else working the case. No, Rachel appeared inside 43 years of investigative files. No interviews. No missing person reports. Nothing. Who is she? Henson answered quietly. Rachel Monroe. She disappeared 6 months before Emily. The room seemed to shrink. Another disappearance? Connected to the same investigation? Impossible. Keller immediately searched statewide databases. No cold case. No homicide. No missing persons record. It was as though Rachel Monroe had never officially existed. Former Deputy Henson explained why. Rachel's family moved away after she vanished. Local police believed she left voluntarily. No criminal investigation followed. No statewide alert. No media attention. No search teams. Her case disappeared before anyone realized it had begun. Detective Keller stared again at the Polaroid. 2 photographers, working together. One vanishes. 6 months later. The second disappears investigating the same abandoned railroad. Coincidence no longer existed. Someone targeted photographers. Someone feared cameras. Someone feared what photographs captured. The forensic laboratory called again shortly after noon. Another film roll had survived. Better condition. Sharper images. Frame after frame documented abandoned rail equipment. Storage sheds. Chemical barrels. Workers moving heavy crates after sunset. Then, the final exposure. Emily must have been running. The photograph tilted sharply sideways. Blurred. Out of focus. But one detail remained horrifyingly clear. A man's face. Only a few feet away from the camera. Looking directly toward Emily. Not surprised. Not frightened. Angry. The expression frozen forever inside damaged film. Forensic artists enhanced the image. Age progression software adjusted for 43 years. Facial recognition searched drivers' license databases. No match. Then Detective Keller noticed something everyone else missed. The man wasn't looking at Emily. He was looking, past her, at someone standing behind the camera. Meaning Emily had not been alone when she pressed the shutter one final time. Someone else witnessed what happened next. Someone who had never come forward. Someone who might still be alive. And somewhere inside thousands of forgotten witness statements. Their name had already been written once before. Investigators simply hadn't realized its importance. Detective Keller ordered every witness statement from October through December 1981 scanned into a searchable database. More than 3,000 handwritten pages, interview notes, telephone tips, anonymous letters, patrol logs, search reports. Most investigators expected the process to take weeks. Instead, the first breakthrough came before midnight, not because of advanced software, because of one sentence everyone had overlooked for 43 years. The sentence appeared inside a 3-page interview conducted on October 21st. 1981. The witness was a 14-year-old paperboy named Ethan Brooks. His statement had been dismissed at the time. The investigating deputy wrote 2 words across the top of the report. Probably imagination. Ethan claimed that on the night Emily disappeared, he rode his bicycle along County Road 6 after delivering newspapers to a farmhouse. He said he saw headlights moving near the abandoned switching yard. That part matched dozens of other tips. But buried near the bottom of the report was a detail no one had followed up on. There was a lady standing by the fence. She had a camera, too. She wasn't Emily because her hair was shorter. Detective Keller read the sentence 3 times. Another woman. Another camera. Another witness. Rachel Monroe. Suddenly the forgotten Polaroid made sense. Emily had not gone to the rail yard alone. She had arranged to meet Rachel. Or perhaps Rachel had returned to the same place months after vanishing. Either possibility shattered the original timeline. Keller reopened every record connected to Rachel Monroe. There were almost none. No driver's license renewal after 1981. No employment history. No tax filings. No marriage records. It was as though Rachel Monroe's identity simply stopped existing. Then an evidence technician called from the archives. We found a box. What kind of box? One that isn't listed anywhere. Deep inside the county evidence warehouse, behind shelving that hadn't been moved in decades, workers discovered a small cardboard carton covered in dust. No inventory-tag. No chain of custody paperwork. Only a handwritten label. Monroe. Inside were 11 items. A broken Nikon camera. 2 undeveloped rolls of film. A leather wallet. A silver bracelet, several contact sheets, and a cassette tape. Another cassette. Detective Keller stared at it in disbelief. 2 forgotten recordings. 2 photographers. 2 disappearances. The odds were becoming impossible to ignore. Unlike Joseph Rollins' confession, this tape carried a date. April 9th, 1981. More than 6 months before Emily vanished. The laboratory restored the recording immediately. The voice belonged to Rachel Monroe, young, confident, breathing hard, as if walking while speaking. If anyone finds this, Keller felt a chill. The words echoed almost perfectly. Joseph Rollins had begun his confession the same way. Rachel continued, I think someone knows I'm following them. Wind rushed across the microphone. Metal clanged somewhere nearby. A train horn sounded in the distance. She was at the railroad. I photographed something today. Her breathing quickened. They weren't loading freight. They were moving files. Files? Investigators exchanged confused looks. Rachel described wooden crates filled not with cargo, but with boxes of documents, old ledgers, maps, personnel records. She believed someone was secretly removing company archives from abandoned railroad buildings. Why? She didn't know, but she planned to return the next evening. Then she said something that froze the room. I saw Sheriff Collins. Silence. Sheriff Walter Collins, the elected sheriff in 1981, the man who supervised Emily's investigation, the man who insisted there was no evidence of foul play. Rachel claimed Collins was speaking with Frank Delaney near the switching yard after dark. Neither man noticed her. She managed to photograph them. The tape ended abruptly. No goodbye. No explanation. Just a sound of hurried footsteps. Then static. Detective Keller immediately searched the recovered contact sheets found in Rachel's evidence box. Most were damaged. A few images remained visible. Abandoned rail buildings, storage sheds, rusted locomotives. Then one frame caught everyone's attention. Frank Delaney, standing beside Sheriff Walter Collins. The photograph was unmistakable. The date stamped along the edge read, APR Orden 1941. 6 months before Emily disappeared. 6 months before anyone realized something terrible was happening. Keller leaned back in his chair. This was never just a missing persons case. Nobody argued, because the evidence now suggested something much larger. Rachel photographed Collins and Delaney. Rachel disappeared. Emily investigated Rachel. Emily disappeared. Joseph Rollins witnessed something at the switching yard. He remained silent, then confessed decades later. Every path returned to the same handful of names. But there was still one missing piece. The hidden confession. The title investigators had given the reopened case. Joseph Rollins admitted witnessing the confrontation, but he never identified the third man. The damaged section of tape had erased the name forever, unless someone else had preserved it. Forensic audio specialists examined the destroyed 23 seconds again, not to recover voices that had already failed. Instead, they analyzed background frequencies, hidden sounds, echoes. One technician noticed something unusual. Another voice overlapped beneath Rollins, almost impossible to hear. Female, very faint. They isolated the frequencies, cleaned the recording, amplified the signal. A whisper slowly emerged. Only 4 words. Walter, don't do this. Walter, not a coincidence. Sheriff Walter Collins. The room fell silent. Detective Keller closed his notebook. 43 years. And now, for the first time, the investigation had crossed a line. The evidence was no longer pointing toward rumor. It was pointing toward the highest-ranking law enforcement officer in Ash Creek during 1981. A sheriff, a respected public official, a man buried with full honors 15 years earlier. Someone who could never be questioned. Someone whose reputation had survived untouched. Until now, outside the courthouse, reporters continued broadcasting live. They knew nothing about Rachel's tape, nothing about Sheriff Collins, nothing about the photographs. But the atmosphere in Ash Creek had changed. People sensed something enormous was unfolding. That evening, as detectives prepared search warrants for Collins' surviving business records, Dispatch received another anonymous phone call. The same female voice. Calm this time. No fear. Only urgency. You've opened the wrong grave. Detective Keller grabbed the receiver. Who is this? A long pause. Then the woman whispered one final sentence. "You still haven't found Emily." The line went dead. Caller identification traced a signal to a payphone nearly 200 miles away. By the time state police arrived, the booth was empty, but taped beneath the receiver was a small brown envelope. Inside was a single photograph, black and white, taken in October 1981. It showed Emily Carter, alive, looking directly into the camera, and standing beside a woman investigators had believed disappeared 6 months earlier, Rachel Monroe. Both women were smiling. Neither looked frightened. On the back of the photograph, someone had written a message in neat block letters. They were together longer than you think. The photograph changed everything. For 43 years, investigators believed Emily Carter disappeared alone. A young photographer chasing a forgotten story. A woman who drove toward an abandoned railway and never returned. But the photograph sitting inside the brown envelope destroyed that assumption completely. Emily was not alone. She had a partner. A person who had been erased from the investigation. Rachel Monroe. The woman whose disappearance came first. The woman whose name appeared only once in official records before vanishing into nothing. Detective Ryan Keller stared at the image for nearly 10 minutes. 2 women standing beside the abandoned switching yard. Emily holding her camera. Rachel standing beside her, both looking directly toward whoever took the photograph. The image was not rushed, not accidental. Someone had intentionally captured that moment. Someone who was close enough to know them. Someone who wanted them remembered. The back of the photograph contained only one sentence. They were together longer than you think. Keller knew immediately. This was not a message from someone trying to solve the case. It was a message from someone who had been waiting for investigators to finally catch up. The photograph was rushed to the forensic laboratory. The first question was simple. When was it taken? The answer came back within hours. October 15, 1981. 1 day before Emily disappeared. 1 day before her truck was found abandoned. 1 day before the investigation officially began. That meant Emily and Rachel were together at the center of the mystery, less than 24 hours before everything changed. The next question was harder. Who took the photograph? The image contained a faint reflection in the chrome surface of Emily's truck. A human shape. Someone standing behind the camera. Technicians enhanced the reflection. The result was unclear, but one detail appeared. A sheriff's badge. Not the full uniform. Not a clear face. Just enough metal reflection to confirm what investigators already feared. Someone connected to law enforcement had been there. Detective Keller requested every personnel record from the Ash Creek Sheriff's Office in 1981. The names were familiar. Deputies, clerks, dispatch operators. But one name stood apart. Sheriff Walter Collins. The man who controlled the department. The man who oversaw the first investigation. The man who publicly stated, "We have no evidence suggesting criminal involvement." A statement he gave only 3 days after Emily disappeared, before the vehicle was fully processed, before every witness was interviewed, before every search was complete. At the time, nobody questioned it. Now, everyone did. The reopened investigation focused on Collins' final years. He died in 2006. Heart failure. 79 years old. A respected figure in Ash Creek. A man whose name appeared on streets, plaques, and community buildings. People described him as honest, dedicated, a protector. But detectives discovered another side. A side hidden beneath decades of reputation. Financial records showed Collins received several unexplained payments during the years surrounding Emily and Rachel's disappearances. Small amounts, never enough to attract attention. Hundreds of dollars, then thousands, coming from different accounts, most connected to companies once involved with the railroad. The payment stopped in 1983, the same year the original investigation quietly became inactive. Detectives began tracing the money. One company name appeared repeatedly, Midwest Heritage Preservation Group. On paper, it was a historical preservation organization. Its purpose was saving abandoned railroad sites. But investigators discovered something unusual. The organization had no employees, no public office, no real projects, only money transfers, and one director, Frank Delaney, the same man seen beside Collins, the same man whose truck appeared in Emily's photograph, the same man Joseph Rollins identified in his confession. A search warrant was issued for Delaney's old property, but there was a problem. Frank Delaney had died 3 months earlier, another person connected to the case gone forever, but investigators searched anyway. Inside his farmhouse, they discovered something disturbing. A hidden basement, not a wine cellar, not storage, a private archive, boxes filled with documents, newspaper articles about Emily, photographs, maps of the switching yard, and dozens of pages copied from police reports. Someone had been collecting information about the investigation, watching the investigation, controlling the investigation. Among the documents was a handwritten note, undated, and signed, only 6 words. The photographers found the ledger. Detectives immediately connected it to Rachel's recording. She said she photographed people moving files, not cargo. Files, documents, records. The ledger. A missing piece of the puzzle. Investigators searched every recovered photograph from Emily and Rachel. They discovered a pattern. Both women were not interested in the abandoned railroad itself. They were following the movement of historical records, old company documents, financial reports, worker safety files, a hidden archive connected to the 1964 derailment, the accident that killed 3 railroad workers. The accident Emily believed was never fully investigated. The official report claimed mechanical failure, but the recovered documents suggested something else. A maintenance report dated 6 months before the crash warned about damaged track sections. The repair request was denied. The reason? Cost reduction. Someone decided saving money mattered more than safety. But that was not the most shocking discovery. The ledger showed payments made after the derailment. Payments to officials, inspectors, local authorities, including one payment made directly to an account controlled by Walter Collins, years before he became sheriff. The accident was not an accident. It was a cover-up. And Emily Carter was getting closer to proving it. But investigators still needed to understand one thing. Why did Rachel Monroe disappear 6 months before Emily? The answer came from a former railroad employee named Samuel Price, 86 years old, living in a retirement community outside St. Louis. He had never spoken publicly, but after seeing Rachel's photograph on television, he contacted detectives himself. His first words were, "I thought everyone involved was dead." When Keller interviewed him, Price revealed the secret nobody expected. Rachel did not disappear. She escaped, at least temporarily. Price explained that Rachel discovered the hidden railroad documents in April 1981. She realized powerful people were involved. She tried to expose it. She contacted newspapers. She contacted police. But every door closed. Then she made one mistake. She trusted the wrong person. A person inside the sheriff's office. A person who promised protection. A person who told her, "I can help you." Price said that was the last time he saw Rachel, standing beside a police vehicle, talking to a deputy. The deputy's name was never written in his statement, because Price was afraid. But now, after 43 years, he finally said it. The deputy who took Rachel away that night was Carl Henson, the same former deputy who recently gave investigators a hidden Polaroid, the same man who claimed he wanted the truth revealed. Detective Keller immediately contacted Henson. No answer. They called again. Nothing. Officers drove to his home. The front door was unlocked. The television was still running. A coffee cup sat on the kitchen table, but Henson was gone. On the table was a handwritten note. 3 words. "I remember everything." Beside it was another cassette tape, another confession, another voice from the past. And this time, the recording began with a sentence that made every detective stop breathing. "I was there when Emily Carter disappeared. The cassette tape sat inside an evidence bag for nearly an hour before anyone pressed play. Nobody wanted to rush. Not after everything they had uncovered. Not after 43 years of silence. Not after finding out that the people who were supposed to protect the truth may have been the same people who buried it. Detective Ryan Keller stood inside the interview room with a small group of investigators. The old tape recorder was placed in the center of the table, a simple machine, a piece of technology that belonged to another era, but inside it was a voice from the past, a voice that could finally explain what happened on October 16th, 1981. The recording began with static, then breathing. Slow, heavy, a man struggling to speak. Carl Henson, former deputy, former witness, former protector of secrets. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. A long pause followed. I don't even know if forgiveness is possible. Keller looked down at the file in front of him. Henson had spent 43 years living with this. 43 years knowing something about Emily Carter, knowing something about Rachel Monroe. The recording continued. I joined the sheriff's department because I wanted to help people. Another pause. That was before I learned how things really worked. The investigators listened silently. Henson described Ash Creek in 1981 as a town controlled by reputation. Everyone knew everyone. Everyone protected everyone. A respected businessman could walk into a room and silence a conversation. A sheriff could end an investigation with a single phone call, and people accepted it because that was how things worked. At least, that was what they told themselves. Henson admitted that when Rachel Monroe disappeared, he was one of the deputies assigned to search for her. But the search was different from what the public believed. There was never a real search. Those words shocked investigators. Henson explained that Sheriff Collins had already decided Rachel left voluntarily, before evidence was collected, before witnesses were questioned, before anyone checked her apartment. The case was controlled from the beginning. Then came the detail that changed the entire investigation. Rachel had evidence, not just photographs, not just rumors. Proof. She had discovered a hidden storage room beneath the old Railroad Administration building. Inside were decades of records, safety reports, financial documents, private agreements, names, payments. A complete history of corruption hidden inside forgotten files. Rachel photographed everything. Then she contacted Emily, because Emily was the only person she trusted. The two women had met years earlier at a photography workshop. Emily was younger, more ambitious, but Rachel saw something in her, a person who cared about stories other people ignored, someone who believed forgotten people deserved to be remembered. When Rachel disappeared, Emily did not walk away. She investigated. That was the moment she became a target. Henson admitted he was ordered to follow Emily, not arrest her, not threaten her. Just watch. Collins wanted to know what she found. But Emily found more than expected. She found Rachel. Alive. Hidden. Waiting. That revelation changed everything. For 43 years, investigators believed Rachel vanished forever. But according to Henson, Rachel survived. At least for a while. The recording continued. Emily helped Rachel hide. The words echoed through the room. They moved between places. They changed vehicles. They knew someone was watching. Henson explained that Emily and Rachel planned to release the evidence. They contacted a journalist outside Missouri. They prepared copies of the documents. They created backups. They knew if something happened to them, the truth could not disappear completely. But someone discovered their plan. On October 16th, 1981, Emily and Rachel returned to the switching yard. They believed they had found the final piece. The original railroad ledger, the document connecting everyone involved, including Collins, including Delaney, including others who had spent years protecting the secret. But they were not alone. Henson admitted he was there. So was Collins. So was Delaney. And another person, someone investigators had never considered, someone who was still alive. I saw Emily take the photograph. Henson's voice became quieter. That was the moment everything changed. According to Henson, Emily captured the image of Collins and Delaney moving the hidden documents. She knew she had proof, but Collins saw the flash. A single mistake, a single sound, a camera shutter, and suddenly everyone realized what happened. Emily had evidence that could destroy them. The confrontation began. Henson said he remembered Emily standing there holding her camera, not screaming, not crying, just looking at them like she already understood. She knew exactly who they were. Then Henson said something investigators never expected. Rachel wasn't afraid of them. Emily was. The recording became silent. Only breathing remained. Then Henson continued. Rachel had been through it before. He explained that Rachel had already spent months hiding. She understood how dangerous Collins and Delaney were, but Emily had never experienced that kind of fear. She still believed the truth would protect her. She believed if enough people knew, they couldn't hurt her. The investigators listened as Henson described what happened next. Collins demanded the cameras. Delaney sortit Emily's bake. Rachel tried to escape. Then something happened. Something nobody had expected. A third person arrived. A person who was not supposed to be there. A person who changed the entire situation. Henson stopped speaking. The tape continued recording. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. 30 seconds. Then his voice returned. I never knew his name. Detective Keller looked up. Who? Who was the fourth person? Henson described him only by appearance. A younger man. Late 20s. Dark jacket. No uniform. Someone Collins seemed to recognize immediately. That detail was impossible, because Sheriff Collins was the most powerful man in the county. Who could make him afraid? The recording continued. The young man had the ledger. The room went silent. The ledger. The missing document. The reason everyone was fighting. The man who arrived had already taken it. He was not there to steal it. He was there to control it. Henson said the man made a deal. He would return the ledger, but only if everyone involved followed his instructions. And those instructions included one thing. Emily Carter could never reveal what she photographed. Rachel Monroe could never speak again. The investigators froze. The wording was disturbing. Not disappear. Not leave town. Not be convinced. Never speak again. Henson continued. I should have stopped them. But I didn't. He admitted he watched. He admitted he followed orders. He admitted that fear controlled him. But then came the most important part of the confession, the part that reopened the entire case. Henson said Emily was not killed at the switching yard. She was moved. The evidence was staged. The truck was abandoned intentionally. The cameras were taken intentionally. Everything was designed to make people believe Emily vanished without a trace. But Henson did not know where she was taken, because after that night, he was ordered to leave. And the person who gave the order was not Collins. It was the unknown man, the man with the ledger, the man who controlled everyone. The tape ended with Henson whispering. His name was Daniel Voss. The room went completely silent. Detective Keller immediately searched the name. Daniel Voss. The result appeared within seconds. A former legal investigator, a consultant for railroad companies, a man who worked closely with government agencies, a man who disappeared from public records in 1982. But the final result shocked everyone. Daniel Voss was not dead. He was alive, living under another name, less than 70 miles from Ash Creek, and according to public records, he had spent the last 30 years teaching criminal investigation courses, teaching future investigators how to find the truth, while hiding one of Missouri's darkest secrets. Detective Keller closed the laptop. The cold case had changed. It was no longer about finding out what happened. Now, it was about confronting the person who had spent decades making sure nobody ever knew. The name Daniel Voss changed the entire direction of the investigation. For weeks, detectives had been looking backward, searching through old files, reviewing forgotten evidence, trying to understand the mistakes made in 1981. But now, for the first time, they were looking at someone who had been watching from the present, someone alive, Someone who had carried the secret for more than 4 decades. Someone who had escaped the consequences by simply changing his name and disappearing into a new life. The first question investigators asked was simple. How had nobody found him? The answer was hidden inside the paperwork. Daniel Voss was not missing. He had not fled the country. He had not gone into hiding in a remote location. He had done something much more effective. He became invisible by becoming ordinary. After leaving Missouri in 1982, Daniel Voss changed his legal name to David Vaughn. Under that identity, he built a respected career. He published articles. He gave lectures. He advised law enforcement training programs. He became known as an expert in investigative psychology, a man who taught others how criminals hide their secrets. The irony was impossible to ignore. The person who understood investigations best was the person who had spent decades avoiding one. Detective Keller requested every record connected to David Vaughn: employment history, travel documents, financial accounts, property ownership. The pattern was disturbing. Wherever David Vaughn went, old records disappeared. Small gaps appeared. Missing documents. Incomplete files. Nothing obvious. Nothing that would trigger suspicion. Just enough missing information to create questions. The same questions that had followed Emily Carter's disappearance. Meanwhile, investigators continued analyzing the recovered photographs. The images from Emily's camera became the foundation of the reopened case. One photograph in particular received the most attention. The final photograph. The one showing the angry man looking toward the camera. At first, everyone assumed he was watching Emily. But after studying the angle, investigators discovered something else. He was looking toward another person. Someone standing behind Emily. Someone who was not visible in the frame. A second camera angle. A second photographer. Rachel. The two women had unknowingly documented the same moment from different positions. And that meant there were more photographs. Investigators searched the recovered film again. They found 3 additional frames hidden near the end of one roll. The images were damaged, but one detail remained. A vehicle, not Frank Delaney's truck, not Emily's Chevrolet. A black sedan parked near the old maintenance building. The license plate was unreadable, but the windshield contained a reflection, a parking permit. Detectives enhanced the image. The permit belonged to a private investigation company. The company was owned by Daniel Voss. At the time, he was not publicly connected to the railroad. He was not law enforcement. He was not involved in the case, officially. But the evidence showed he had been there, watching. The investigation now had a new timeline. April 1981. Rachel discovers the hidden documents. Rachel disappears. October 1981. Emily investigates Rachel's disappearance. Emily and Rachel reunite. They uncover the railroad ledger. They photograph the people involved. Daniel Voss arrives. The evidence disappears. The women vanish. The cover-up begins. For decades, that timeline remained hidden, until one cassette tape, one forgotten photograph, one confession. The search for David Vaughn began immediately, but investigators discovered something unexpected. He was already waiting. When detectives arrived at his home outside Springfield, the front door was open. The lights were on. A coffee machine was still running. A newspaper sat unfolded on the kitchen table. It looked like someone had left only minutes earlier. But David Vaughn was gone. No struggle. No damage. No obvious escape route. Only one thing remained. A handwritten letter. Addressed to Detective Ryan Keller. The letter was not an apology. It was not a confession. It was a challenge. The first line read, "You finally learn how to ask the right questions." Keller continued reading. Voss wrote that everyone involved in the case believed they understood what happened. They were wrong. He claimed Collins and Delaney were not the true architects of the cover-up. They were only protecting themselves. According to Voss, the real secret was larger, much larger. The railroad accident in 1964, the missing documents, the payments, the disappearances. They were all connected to something that had been buried for decades. A network of people who protected each other. Officials, business owners, investigators, people who believed the truth was dangerous. But the most disturbing sentence came near the end. Emily Carter was never the target. Detective Keller stopped reading. That sentence changed everything. If Emily was not the target, then who was? The answer appeared in the next line. She was the person who found the target. Investigators immediately returned to Emily's personal files, her notes, her photographs, her journal. They had spent weeks studying what she discovered, but they had not studied why she discovered it. Inside one of Emily's notebooks was a forgotten entry dated September 1981, a month before she disappeared. It mentioned a name, not Rachel, not Collins, not Delaney, a different name, Thomas Vale, a former railroad accountant, a man who worked for the company involved in the 1964 derailment, a man who vanished in 1979, 2 years before Rachel disappeared. At first, investigators thought the name was another missing piece. Then they found a connection. Thomas Vale had created the original financial records proving the railroad company knew about safety failures before the accident. He had discovered the payments. He had copied documents. He had attempted to expose the truth. Then he disappeared. The official explanation? He moved away. But no address. No new employment. No contact with family. No evidence of a new life. Just another person who vanished after getting too close. Suddenly, the case was no longer about two missing photographers. It was about everyone who tried to reveal the same secret. Rachel, Emily, Thomas Vale. 3 people, 3 investigations, 1 hidden truth. The investigators returned to David Vaughn's abandoned home with a new search warrant. This time they searched deeper. Behind a false wall in his office, they found a locked metal cabinet. Inside were hundreds of pages, not stolen documents, not secret files. Something more disturbing. Copies of newspaper articles about the case. Every article, every year, every update, every rumor. He had been following the investigation from the beginning. He had saved everything. And among those papers was one final photograph. Not from Emily, not from Rachel. Taken recently. The image showed a woman standing outside the old Ash Creek courthouse. Older, gray hair, holding a folder. On the back of the photograph were 3 words. She remembers everything. The woman was identified within hours. A former courthouse clerk. Someone who worked in 1981. Someone who had processed the original investigation paperwork. Someone whose name appeared nowhere in the old reports. Her name was Margaret Ellis. And when detectives located her, she did not deny knowing Emily Carter. She did not deny knowing Rachel Monroe. She did not deny knowing Daniel Voss. Instead, she asked one question. Did you find the basement? Detective Keller felt the same cold feeling he had experienced throughout the entire investigation, because everyone connected to the case kept mentioning hidden places, hidden rooms, hidden documents, hidden evidence, but nobody had ever mentioned the basement. Until now. Margaret Ellis slowly revealed that beneath the old Ash Creek courthouse, there was a room that officially did not exist, a room built before modern records were created. A room where sensitive documents were stored. A room where evidence was kept away from public records. And according to Margaret, that was where the original evidence from Emily Carter's disappearance had been taken. Not lost, not destroyed. Hidden for 43 years. The cold case had never been empty. The answers had always been there, waiting beneath the courthouse floor. And for the first time since 1981, investigators had a location. A place where the truth might still be alive. The basement beneath the Ash Creek courthouse had existed for more than 60 years. But officially, it did not exist at all. There were no blueprints, no maintenance records, no construcción permits, no mention in county archives. The room was a ghost, a place built beneath a building that everyone walked through every day without knowing what was underneath their feet. When Detective Ryan Keller first heard Margaret Ellis mention it, he thought she was describing an old rumor. Small towns were full of them. hidden tunnels, secret rooms, forgotten passages, stories passed down from one generation to the next until nobody knew where fact ended and fiction began. But Margaret was not telling a story. She was describing a place she had personally entered, a place she had been ordered to forget. The search began before sunrise. The courthouse was closed. Police vehicles blocked every entrance. News helicopters circled above the town. Residents gathered across the street, watching the building that had stood at the center of Ash Creek for nearly a century. Nobody knew what investigators expected to find, but everyone understood one thing. The past was coming back. Inside the courthouse basement, workers removed old wooden panels behind a storage room. Behind the wall was a narrow concrete staircase. The steps were covered in dust. Nobody had walked down there in years, maybe decades. Detective Keller moved slowly, flashlight in hand. Every sound echoed. The air smelled like old paper and rusted metal. At the bottom of the stairs was a steel door. No handle, only a small keyhole. Margaret Ellis stood behind the investigators. She looked at the door, then quietly said, "That's where they kept the things they didn't want found." A locksmith opened it. The door resisted at first, then suddenly gave way. Inside was a room frozen in time. Metal filing cabinets, wooden boxes, stacks of folders, old recording equipment, evidence bags. Everything covered in dust, but nothing destroyed. Someone had protected this room. Someone had maintained it. The investigators began cataloging everything. The first box contained old railroad documents. The second contained financial records. The third contained photographs. Hundreds of them. Detective Keller immediately recognized the handwriting on the labels. Emily Carter. The room contained the work of two women who had vanished while trying to expose the truth. Their investigation was here. The evidence they collected was here. The proof they died trying to reveal was here. For decades, everyone believed Emily had taken the photographs with her. They were wrong. Someone had taken them from her. Someone had hidden them. And someone had protected them. The discovery created a new mystery. Why keep the evidence? If someone wanted the truth buried, why preserve the very thing that could expose them? The answer came from a small envelope found inside the deepest filing cabinet. No label. No date. Only one word written across the front. Insurance. Inside were copies of documents, photographs, names, and a letter. The letter was written by Daniel Voss, but it was not addressed to anyone. It was a warning. If something happens to me, this information becomes public. Detectives stared at the page. Daniel Voss had not only hidden secrets, he had also protected himself. He knew the people involved could turn against him, so he created a backup, a weapon made of paper, evidence that could destroy everyone if he disappeared. But there was something strange. The letter was dated November 1981, 1 month after Emily vanished, meaning Daniel Voss was still alive, still active, still moving pieces around after the disappearance. He had not simply covered up a crime. He had managed the aftermath. The next discovery came from a small audio recorder, a reel-to-reel tape labeled, "Meeting November 4th, 1981. The audio quality was poor, but voices were clear enough. For men, for people discussing what to do. The first voice was immediately recognized. Walter Collins, the former sheriff. The second belonged to Frank Delaney. The third, Daniel Voss. The fourth remained unknown. The conversation began calmly, almost like a business meeting. Then the tone changed. They were discussing Emily. They were discussing Rachel. And they were discussing someone else. A man named Thomas Vale, the missing accountant. The man whose documents started everything. Detective Keller listened as the voices revealed a terrifying timeline. Thomas Vale had not disappeared in 1979. He had been forced into hiding. He had spent years collecting proof against a railroad company. He had created copies. He had contacted journalists. He had prepared to expose everything. But before he could, someone found him. The meeting revealed something investigators never expected. Thomas Vale was still alive in 1981, and Emily knew where he was. That was why she was dangerous. Not because of the photographs, not because of Rachel, because Emily had found the person who could destroy the entire operation. The recording continued. Walter Collins sounded nervous. He can't be allowed to talk. Daniel Voss responded. He already talked. A pause. Then, someone has the copies. Investigators froze. Someone has the copies. Not Emily. Not Rachel. Someone else. The fourth voice finally spoke. A younger voice. Calm. Confident. Then we find everyone connected. The tape ended. The identity of the fourth man remained unknown. But detectives now understood something. Emily Carter was never just investigating an old railroad accident. She had uncovered a chain of secrets stretching back decades. And every person who touched the truth disappeared. Rachel Monroe, Thomas Vale, Emily Carter. The question became unavoidable. How many people had been silenced? The investigation expanded immediately. Cold case teams searched every missing person report connected to the railroad company from 1965 onward. They found patterns. Employees who disappeared after reporting safety violations. Accountants who resigned suddenly. Inspectors who moved away without explanation. Witnesses who changed statements. The same pattern repeated. Someone uncovered information. Someone tried to reveal it. Someone made sure they stopped. The case was no longer one disappearance. It was a system, a machine built from fear and silence. Meanwhile, forensic teams continued examining the hidden courthouse evidence. One discovery changed the direction again. A small envelope containing fingerprints. Old evidence collected from Emily's truck. In 1981, the prints were too incomplete to identify. Modern technology changed that. The laboratory processed them again. The results returned 3 days later. One set belonged to Emily. One belonged to Frank Delaney. The third belonged to someone nobody expected. Detective Keller stared at the report. He read the name twice, then a third time, because the fingerprint belonged to someone who had spent 43 years pretending he was just another witness. Someone who had helped reopen the case. Someone who had confessed. Joseph Rollins. But the fingerprint was not the shocking part. The date was. The print had been lifted from inside Emily's truck, on the driver's door, meaning Joseph Rollins had been inside Emily's vehicle after she disappeared. Something he had never admitted. Something that contradicted his confession. Investigators immediately searched for Joseph Rollins, but he was already gone. His home was empty, his phone disconnected, his car missing. The man who claimed he wanted the truth had vanished the moment the truth started getting closer. Detective Keller returned to the original cassette recording. He replayed Joseph's confession. This time, he listened differently, not for what Joseph said, for what he avoided saying. Every time investigators asked about Emily's truck, Joseph changed the subject. Every time he mentioned the night she disappeared, he stopped before describing what happened afterward. Because Joseph Rollins had not only witnessed the crime, he had been closer than anyone realized. And now investigators had proof. The cold case had cracked open, but beneath the first layer of truth was another secret. Joseph Rollins had left behind one final message, a note hidden inside his abandoned home. Only one sentence written on a piece of paper. I was not the first person who lied. And beneath it, a name. A name that connected the entire mystery back to the very beginning. A name investigators had seen before, but never considered. Emily Carter. Emily Carter. For 43 years, Emily had been remembered as a victim, the photographer who vanished, the woman who searched for the truth and disappeared because of it, the person everyone believed had been silenced. But Joseph Rollins' final note suggested something impossible. Emily had lied. Detective Ryan Keller sat alone inside the evidence room long after midnight. The walls around him were covered with photographs. Emily's face. Rachel's face. Walter Collins. Frank Delaney. Daniel Voss. Every person connected to the case. every person who had carried a piece of the truth. And now, the woman at the center of everything had become another question. Keller hated that possibility, because investigations were supposed to move toward certainty, not away from it. But the evidence did not care about assumptions. It only told the story it carried. The next morning, investigators returned to Emily's apartment, not because they expected to find something new, because they realized they had searched it with the wrong question. For decades, they asked, "What happened to Emily?" Now they asked, "What was Emily hiding?" The difference changed everything. The apartment had been searched in 1981. Every drawer, every closet, every notebook. Investigators found nothing unusual. But modern forensic technology revealed details nobody noticed. Behind a loose panel inside Emily's bedroom closet was a hidden compartment. Inside was a small metal box. The box contained 3 items: a photograph, a key, and a handwritten letter. The photograph was old, older than Emily's disappearance. It showed a group of railroad workers standing beside a maintenance building in 1964. One face was circled in red ink: Thomas Vale, the missing accountant. But the letter explained why. Emily had discovered that Thomas Vale was not just a witness. He was her father. Detectives froze. The revelation changed the entire family history. Emily Carter had spent years investigating a railroad accident without realizing the man connected to the truth was part of her own past. The letter explained everything. Emily's mother had never told her who her biological father was. She had been raised believing Thomas Vale was simply a stranger, a name from an old photograph, a forgotten employee. But when Emily researched the 1964 derailment, she found records connecting Vale to her mother. The discovery shocked her. She began searching for him. She believed he might still be alive. And eventually, she found him. Not dead, not missing, living under another name. Emily's investigation was not just about uncovering corruption. It was about finding the father she never knew. That changed the meaning of everything. The photographs, the questions, the risks she took. Emily was not only chasing a story. She was searching for a missing part of herself. Detective Keller read the letter carefully. The handwriting was Emily's. The date was October 10th, 1981, 6 days before she disappeared. The final paragraph contained a sentence that shocked investigators. "If anything happens to me, don't believe everything you hear." The warning was clear. Emily knew people might lie, including people close to her. The question became, who? The key found inside the box provided the next clue. It opened a safety deposit box at a bank in Kansas City, a box that had remained untouched since 1981. Inside were dozens of documents, copies of railroad reports, financial records, photographs, and a second journal. This journal belonged to Thomas Vale, the missing accountant, the man everyone thought disappeared in 1979. His final entries revealed a terrifying truth. Thomas Vale had not vanished. He had been protected by Emily's mother. Her name was Margaret Carter. She had known the entire story. For years, the woman who raised Emily had hidden the identity of her father, but not because she wanted to hurt Emily, because she was afraid. Thomas Vale had discovered the railroad company's crimes. He had discovered the payments, the falsified reports, the destroyed safety records. But he also discovered something worse. The corruption reached beyond the railroad. It reached into law enforcement, into local government, into the people responsible for protecting the community. Thomas knew exposing the truth could get people killed, so he disappeared. Margaret helped him. They created a plan. Thomas would stay hidden until enough evidence existed to expose everyone involved. But the plan failed, because Rachel Monroe found the documents. Then Emily found Rachel. The truth started moving faster than anyone could control. The investigators now understood why Emily had been targeted. She was not simply another person who discovered the secret. She was the daughter of the man who created it. She carried the missing connection, the one person who could prove where the corruption began. But there was still a question. Where was Thomas Vale? If he was alive in 1981, What happened to him afterward? The answer came from another hidden file inside the courthouse basement. Transferred witness, October 1981. Inside was a single page. No signature. No official stamp. Only a handwritten location. A small town in northern Arkansas. And a name, Michael Carter. Emily's father had been living under another identity, but the file contained one more detail. He died in 1993, without ever revealing the truth, without ever contacting Emily, without ever knowing she had been searching for him. Detective Keller struggled with that discovery, because it meant Emily got closer to truth than anyone realized. But she never got the answer she wanted. She found her father, but too late. The investigation returned to Joseph Rollins. Why had he lied? Why was his fingerprint inside Emily's truck? Why did he disappear after confessing? The answer came when detectives located his abandoned vehicle near a remote road. Inside was another cassette tape, unlike the others. This one was recent, recorded only days before he vanished. Joseph's voice sounded exhausted. I know everyone thinks I'm the reason this happened. A pause. But I was only trying to fix what I helped break. He admitted he entered Emily's truck after the disappearance, but not to harm her. He was searching for the original film, the film containing the clearest evidence. He found it, but someone else found him. Joseph claimed Daniel Voss threatened him, forced him to remain silent, forced him to become part of the cover-up. But the most shocking confession came at the end. Joseph revealed he had seen Emily alive after the disappearance. Not once, but twice. The first time was at a hidden location outside Missouri. The second time was years later. In 1987, Emily had approached him, older, different, but alive. She told him, "Don't tell them I survived." The investigators stopped the recording. Everyone stared at the speaker. The impossible possibility had returned. Emily Carter may not have been murdered. She may have disappeared by choice. But why? Why would a woman who spent years searching for the truth abandon everyone who loved her? Why would she allow her family to believe she was dead? Unless she knew something even more dangerous than the conspiracy itself. The final seconds of Joseph's recording contained one last clue. A name. A person Emily was afraid of, a person who was still alive, someone who had never appeared in any investigation file. Joseph whispered. Emily wasn't running from them. A pause. She was protecting them from her. The tape ended, and for the first time in 43 years, investigators questioned the entire story. Maybe Emily Carter was not the missing piece. Maybe she was the person holding the final piece. And maybe the biggest secret in Missouri's oldest cold case was the truth about Emily herself. For 43 years, the town of Ash Creek believed Emily Carter was a victim, a woman who disappeared because she discovered something dangerous, a photographer who walked into the darkness and never came back. But after Joseph Rollins' final recording surfaced, investigators faced a possibility nobody wanted to consider. What if Emily Carter was not the person who disappeared? What if she was the person who chose to vanish? The theory divided the investigation. Some detectives believed Joseph's confession was unreliable. The old man had carried guilt for decades. He was afraid. He was confused. Maybe he had created a story to make peace with himself before his death. But Detective Ryan Keller noticed something different. Joseph had never tried to make himself look innocent. In fact, every version of his story made him look worse. He admitted lying. He admitted entering Emily's truck. He admitted hiding information. People who invented stories usually protected themselves. He exposed himself. That made Keller believe there was something real buried beneath the confession. The investigation returned to one question. Where was Emily Carter after October 16, 1981? The official timeline ended at the abandoned switching yard. But Joseph's recording created a second timeline, a hidden one, a timeline where Emily survived. Investigators began searching every document connected to unknown female identities between 1981 and 1995. They searched hospitals, shelters, employment records, property registrations, thousands of names. Most led nowhere. Then one record appeared. A woman named Elena Cross, a freelance photographer, moved frequently, rarely photographed herself, no known relatives, no public history before 1982. The name meant nothing until investigators saw the handwriting, a signature on a photography contract, the same unusual letter formation, the same sharp angle on the capital E. Emily Carter's handwriting. The discovery was sent for forensic comparison. The result came back 3 days later, highly consistent. Elena Cross and Emily Carter were almost certainly the same person. The impossible had become possible. Emily Carter survived. But where had she been? And why did she abandon everyone? Investigators tracked Elena Cross through decades of scattered records. She moved from Missouri to Colorado, then Oregon, then Washington, always near places with historical significance, always documenting forgotten locations, old buildings, abandoned communities, lost stories. She never stopped photographing. She simply changed her name. The woman who disappeared became a ghost who continued doing the same work, searching, recording, remembering. Detective Keller studied hundreds of photographs taken by Elena. Then he noticed something, a pattern. Many images contained the same symbol, a small triangle drawn somewhere in the background, on walls, on signs, on abandoned structures, a symbol that looked meaningless, until investigators compared it with documents found beneath the courthouse. The same triangle appeared on the original railroad files. It was not a random mark. It was a code, a symbol used by people inside the conspiracy, a way of identifying documents connected to the hidden records. Emily had spent decades following the same trail. She never stopped investigating. She just stopped telling people her real name. The next breakthrough came from a photograph taken in 2003. Elena Cross standing outside a historical archive in Oregon. Beside her was an older man. The man was holding a folder. Investigators enhanced the image. The face became clear. Thomas Vale, Emily's father. The man everyone believed died in 1993. The impossible happened again. 2 people everyone thought were gone had survived, and they had been together. The discovery created a new mystery. Why had Thomas Vale and Emily hidden for so long? The answer came from a letter found inside the Oregon archive. A letter written by Emily, never sent, never delivered, addressed to her brother Daniel. The letter began, "I know you think I abandoned you." Detective Keller read every word carefully. Emily explained that after October 1981, she realized the investigation was compromised. The sheriff's office could not protect her. The people who control the evidence control the entire system. She believed anyone close to her could become a target, including her family. So she disappeared, not because she stopped loving them, because she believed distance was the only way to keep them alive. She wrote that she watched from afar. She knew when her parents died. She knew Daniel continued leaving flowers. She knew the community remembered her, and every year she wanted to return, but she couldn't because the people responsible were still watching. Then came the most important part of the letter. Emily revealed she had not been hiding from Daniel Voss. She had been hiding from someone else, someone even more powerful, someone who controlled Voss, someone who had never been exposed, a person Emily called the Architect. Investigators searched the recovered documents again. The phrase appeared several times, not as a name, as a title. The Architect, the person who designed the system, the person who connected the railroad company, officials, and law enforcement, the person who made sure nobody talked. Detective Keller realized something terrifying. Daniel Voss was never the mastermind. He was only the person carrying out instructions. The real power had been invisible, hidden behind layers of people. And Emily knew the identity. She had spent 43 years protecting that secret. The next clue came from Thomas Vale's private journal. The final pages had been removed. Someone had torn them out. But inside the binding, investigators found a hidden message written with a pencil. A name that shocked everyone. Because the person connected to the entire conspiracy was someone whose reputation had survived untouched. Someone people trusted. Someone nobody questioned. The name was Margaret Ellis, the former courthouse clerk, the woman who revealed the hidden basement, the woman who helped reopen the case, the woman who appeared to be helping investigators. Now, she was connected to the center of it. Detective Keller immediately requested an interview. Margaret agreed. She arrived calmly. No lawyer. No fear. She sat across from Keller and looked directly at him. I knew this day would come. The room became silent. Keller placed the documents on the table. You knew Emily survived. Margaret did not deny it. I knew she was alive. How? A long pause. Because I helped her disappear. The confession changed everything. Margaret explained that she was not the architect. She was the person who helped Emily escape. She had worked inside the courthouse. She saw how evidence was manipulated. She saw reports disappear. She saw names removed. And she realized Emily was running out of time. So Margaret made a choice. She helped create a new identity. She helped erase Emily's official records. She helped a woman everyone thought was dead become someone else. But Keller asked the question that mattered most. Why didn't you tell anyone? Margaret looked down. Because Emily made me promise. Why? Margaret's answer was quiet. Because she knew the architect was still alive. The room froze. Who? Margaret looked at the evidence files, then at Detective Keller, and said the name investigators had spent decades missing. The person who taught everyone else how to hide. A person who had never been investigated. A person who had been there before Emily disappeared. A person whose influence reached every part of the case. Then Margaret whispered, Emily didn't disappear from Ash Creek. A pause. She disappeared because Ash Creek was never the place she was afraid of. The place she feared was everywhere else. And for the first time, detectives understood. They were not chasing a missing woman. They were chasing the shadow of someone who had controlled the truth for more than 40 years. The architect was still alive, and Emily Carter knew exactly who it was.